It's also time to acknowledge ways that our criminal justice system treats different people unfairly. Marijuana is a great example. We know that while white people and black people use marijuana at similar rates, black people are 3.5 times more likely to be charged with a crime for it. And they're almost 4 times as likely to be convicted. That happens because that's how the system was set up generations ago. In fact, one of the early leaders of the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency was clear that marijuana laws should be written explicitly to target people of color. And so they were. And they've been targeting people for years. It's time to join 16 other states and make marijuana legal and end the current system rooted in inequity. We've done the research, and we can do this the right way, leading with social equity, public health, and public safety. Reforming our marijuana laws is one way to ensure that Virginia is a more just state that works better for everyone. Marijuana has become a cash crop that rivals tobacco, even right here in Virginia. But as an illegal crop, it makes no money for Virginia. By legalizing and taxing it, we can use the revenue to help communities most disproportionately impacted by the inequities in our laws. For example, just half of the potential annual revenue could pay for 2 years of quality pre-K to every one of Virginia's most vulnerable 3- and 4-year-olds, children who deserve the best start in life. Rooting out inequities includes expunging the records of people who were convicted of this and certain other crimes in the past. It's time to act during this session to have the robust debate about how to best conduct the process of expunging people's records. This will make our system more just and equal, and it needs action this session. You know, forgiveness is important, but when we all agree that a crime deserves the strongest punishment we can give, it's still vital to make sure our criminal justice system operates fairly and punishes people equitably. I know the death penalty doesn't do that. But make no mistake, if you commit the most heinous crimes, you should spend the rest of your days in prison. But here are the facts about the death penalty. Virginia has executed more people than any other state, more than 1,300 people. And here's another truth. A person is more than 3 times as likely to be sentenced to death when the victim is white than when the victim is black. Now, some of that is because Virginia is an old state, 401 years of history. But it's also true that we're near the top of the list in the modern era too, since federal law allowed executions to resume in the 1970s after a long moratorium. Over that time, most countries in the world have turned away from capital punishment. So what parts of the world continue to use capital punishment? Well, here is a list in order. China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, and the United States. But that's changing. In the U.S., 22 states have said no longer will the state take a life, even when someone has killed another. And there are a lot of reasons for that. It doesn't work as a deterrent. It is very expensive. And the drug companies, the pharmaceutical companies, refuse to supply the lethal chemicals. There's another important reason. What if the system gets it wrong? If you think it can't happen, you're wrong. It can happen, and it has happened here in Virginia. Let's remember the case of Earl Washington. In 1984, he was convicted of capital murder. He spent 18 years in prison in Virginia, including 9.5 of them on death row. But he didn't do it. By the early 2000s, the technology behind DNA evidence showed that he was innocent. In the time it took to get the right people to look at that evidence, this innocent man came within 9 days of being executed. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot do that in Virginia. If 10 days had passed, we would ask ourselves today, how did Virginia execute an innocent man? So, for all of these reasons, the death penalty is much less common in Virginia than before. Today, only 2 people are on death row. It's time to change the law and end the death penalty in Virginia.